Hello and welcome to First Geek 411. I'm your host, Cameron Franklin, and with me, as always, from the Great White North, Shanine. How are you doing?
Hi, doing pretty good.
And joining us from West Coast, Best Coast, Emma. How are you doing today?
Woo! Thriving,
Thriving.
you know. I got 12 hours of sleep on Friday night, so
Dang.
first
I'm
time I've gotten more than 8 in quite a few weeks. So,
nice. I'm super jealous.
there you go. I'd say that was a solid hard reset
Yeah,
for the middle of the semester.
perfect time to catch up.
Yep.
Tonight, we are chatting all about the Fellowship in our Lord of the Rings inspired topics for this month. We'll be chatting specifically about, like the Fellowship of the Ring, but also just about like adventure parties and stuff like that. And kind of have a lot of fun with that discussion. Before we get in there, of course, we'll talk about what we have been up to and where you can find us, which is on social media as OneGeek411. You can also join our Discord server or shoot us an email at 1stgeek411 at gmail.com. You can watch live on Twitch Monday nights, 6:45 Mountain Time. Found the videos over on our YouTube. And then you can also go and check out our Redbubble store. Emma, besides getting a ton of sleep, what have you been up to?
Let's see. Recently, I started playing a game on the PlayStation called Tome. It's super cute. Shanine, I think you would really like it if you haven't played it already. But it's just like this cute little, like, hand-drawn black and white adventure where you go out and, like, take pictures of things and get fun little quests to do. It's super casual, super chill, and super cute. Um, and I've also been playing a lot of Stardew Valley. That's been my de-stressing game recently. I have like 2 or 3 different farms going. So I've been playing a lot of that. I've also been reading the book club book. I thought that book club was last Thursday, so I was like, I'm not even halfway through the book yet. I'm not gonna have it done for book club. Turns out my whole brain was a week early this month. And I was like, I literally got home on Thursday and I was like, I'm not done with the book yet. Checked, looked for the book club notes and was like, it's not till next week. I have a whole nother week, which is
Perfect.
nice. Yeah. um, and then I got a cool coffee table book today at school that's about like the intersection of Broadway musicals and Hollywood. That's just a little cool fun thing. I couldn't think of anything else, and one of my friends was like, "You should put on there that you got a free book." So I got
Yeah.
a free book, you guys.
It is a pretty cool free book from the sound. You should
Yeah,
post a picture over in the Discord.
yeah, I will. So that's been my week.
I'm excited to hear more about Toem. That game's been like on my list and I haven't gotten
It's
there yet.
it's so enjoyable. It's very delightful. I would highly recommend it.
Shanine, what
I
have you
haven't
been?
heard.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say I haven't heard of it, but I am down for cute games.
Yeah,
So,
I think you would really enjoy it. It seems like your vibe when it comes to games.
right. Speaking of my vibe, I've been watching Halloween
It's it's
movies.
it's, it's officially still spooky season.
Oh yes. I watched the first Rob Zombie one. So that is where I am at with my watch through of the Halloween franchise.
What number is that
Um,
one?
I believe it's the ninth. Yeah.
So you're almost done, right?
Yep. I have one more Rob Zombie one, the two new reboots, and then the one coming out in theaters. So very close to being
Mm-hmm.
done.
Then I want your Halloween movie tier list rankings.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
I'm planning on it. I've
Good,
been taking notes.
good, good.
Um, we also started watching Haikyuu. I believe it is my first sports anime. Um, I feel like the first few episodes, I was like, it's okay, it's kind of cute. I'm not like that into it. And then like the very next episode almost made me cry.
Oh,
So I was like, well, okay,
okay, they got you.
there it is.
Lies, all of them.
Okay. So, yes, enjoying that one so far. And also this weekend, it was my first time GMing. Um, I agreed to beta test this system and didn't realize until like the night before that that meant that I was the GM.
Oh,
I was like,
okay.
oh no, wait, stop. Um, so yeah, that I did that, and I mean I have DM'd for my husband before, but that's it. Never for a group of other people. So, but I think
How'd it go?
it went well for my
That's
first
good.
time.
How many players? How many players? What's the system? If you're allowed to say, I don't know if you have to be sneaky since it's in beta, but
I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but he did put the call out on Twitter, so I feel like I can say the same things that he said. So it is a Bible study tabletop RPG system.
Ooh.
So it's very interesting concept. We had a good time. Um, yeah, it was pretty fun. So keep your eye out for that soon if that is something you are interested in. I'll be sharing it probably when it comes out. And yeah, GMing was actually fun and not too terrifying. My players are all very nice, and um, I probably will be GMing again. And by probably, I
Yay.
mean I'm already making plans to do another like one shot with that group. So
nice.
yes.
Cameron, I acknowledge your note.
Okay. So for me, I went and visited some friends in Oklahoma over the weekend who conveniently lived one Buren and Luthien away. So I just audiobooked that the whole way. It was actually like an extra like hour on top of it, but like it turns out 2 times speed. Like this book was pretty short when you. This is the first time I've done an audiobook for our book club since I think like the second or third book club we've done. So we're going to see how this goes from me because I notoriously do not retain things from audiobooks, especially while driving. And so I really feel like I'm going to need to review what happened in this book.
There you go.
But I enjoyed it from what I listened to. And so I'm excited for our conversation later this week.
Boy, I tell you, I was really trying to cram it last week. So I got a lot read last week.
No, I'm cramming it all this week. But the bonus is it does repeat a lot.
Yeah.
So
it's easier to skim through some stuff.
Yep.
While in Oklahoma, we played a whole lot of Magic the Gathering. And then we went to the LGS that was over there. I think it was called Wizard. And so went and did some shopping there. And then played some Marvel Champions, which I had never played before, but I'd been wanting to try. Jarrett on the Infinity Bros had recommended it a while ago, and I had just never got around to it. Have y'all played Marvel Champions? Okay. It's a like Marvel superhero themed like co-op game where you have like a deck of cards and like obviously like the cards have abilities, and so like but like every character has like 15 cards. I could be getting numbers wrong, but like 15 cards that they start out with or that are like unique to that character. And then you make a deck of like I think it's 40 to 50 cards that can be a mix of anything as long as they're not another player's unique cards. And so I played with the kind of like the starter Captain Marvel deck, and then one of my friends used Spider Gwen, and the other used Gamora, and so
Nice.
it was really fun. We played like the intro battle, and so like all things considered, like it was pretty easy, especially since they like most definitely knew what they were doing, and I was basically just over here blasting things. Like Captain Marvel was a great pickup for a first time hero, which is kind of what I had expected. And so, yeah, I was just like going around dealing a ton of damage and having a ton of fun. So definitely recommend that. Then we played the Legend of Korra Pro Bending Arena board game.
How is that?
It's fun.
But not great.
Yeah, it's very random.
Mm.
And so it's modeled after Pro Bending from Legend of Korra, but so the idea is that you're trying to like knock the opposing team out the back of the ring. And so like you do that by like basically like on your turn you attack your opponent, and then on their turn they can either like defend or like move their characters out of the way and attack you. But your goal is to end your turn with none of your enemy's attacks on your characters. And if you have them there, you get pushed back.
Interesting.
And so basically you have about 3 life per character, unless you can push all of your opponents back a row, and then you get to advance. But it's like super random. And so we played with the default teams, which are Fire Ferrets and Wolf Bats. And the Wolf Bats have the ability to daze, which basically makes the character skip the top action on their card. And then the Fire Ferrets have the ability to, like, I think it's called counterbending, which is basically take all of the elements of their type and throw it back at the opponent. But the problem is it's super random what cards you get. Like you're kind of like building a deck as you go. And so it's super random when you get your upgraded abilities. It's super random in the sense of like, sometimes you just like legitimately can't do anything. And it's like, oh, I would like to save this character, but I literally can't.
Yeah.
And so like, it's like super random in that sense. And it is fun. I just kind of think it might need some balance work, but yeah, it's definitely enjoyable. I've been thinking about getting the minis painted for a while, but at least for the main team. And then, while up there, we chatted a whole bunch of D&D, which, you know, is like one of my favorite things to talk about people with is what is their campaign? What characters are they playing? How's it going? What are your ideas? And so, my friend that I was up there visiting, he's running the Strixhaven campaign that I want to run. And so he and I are just like, have been like just discussing ideas of how we're adapting or how we're going to adjust things as we go, or like our versions of what these characters are going to be like and stuff like that. And so it was really fun kind of getting to see him several months ahead of where I am, but getting to chat about stuff. So, yep. And then I beat Assassin's Creed Unity this past week after a kind of marathon tail end of the game. I was like, oh, I'm only like 3 missions away from finishing it. And then sure enough, it was just like 3 crazy long missions and that I should have anticipated. And I was like, oh man, I did not budget. I did not budget my time wisely for this. But it was a very fun game, except I sprinted through it. I didn't do a lot of the side stuff. So I was very underleveled, which very much contributed to why the last 3 missions were so long. So it turns out when you like barrel through an open world game, you're not quite prepared for the end. So, like I think I'd done a total of like less than 5 side missions in the whole game.
Wow.
And so I was like, yeah, like zooming through, and like there was some shout outs to people in chat with me, but they're like, hey, just do this. I'm like, yeah, I don't have that unlocked. They're like, oh, well, what about this? I'm like, nope.
Meanwhile, I have yet to finish Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Yeah. Oh man, Valhalla is so good. But yeah, I enjoyed Unity. It's definitely much better than it was at launch. The game was apparently super buggy, but I really enjoyed it. It kind of had some very natural Assassin's Creed wonkiness, but it was also had a lot of the normal Assassin's Creed fun. So, yeah, listeners, let us know what you've been up to over in Twitch chat or over in the comment section on YouTube, or of course over in that Discord, where we've been having a very lively conversation. I'm going to just tease this now. I've been having a very lively conversation about the Last of Us trailer. And so we'll talk about that after our next conversation. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, so this month, kind of tying in with Biren and Luthien, we are having some chats about the Lord of the Rings, or like Lord of the Rings inspired topics. And so for this week, what I thought would be fun is to connect with this idea of the Fellowship. And so I feel like this is probably one of the most well-known things about Lord of the Rings, other than the rings. But what do you think of the Fellowship of the Ring? How do you feel about the characters? What are your thoughts on it? High level, deep level, whatever you got. How do you feel about the Fellowship?
Great concept. Ran into some issues along the way, but
yeah,
they tried their best.
One specific, very specific issue along the way.
Yes.
I love them all. I look at this picture and there's not a single person in this fellowship that I do not have deep, deep affection for. I don't know, like it did fall apart, but it also served its purpose for how long it needed to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a mix of skills and personalities, and they still did some really great stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's crazy how much, like, I mean, granted, like, everyone except Boromir stays on mission the whole time, even though they're not, like, the Fellowship. But, like, it is kind of crazy that they really are only the Fellowship for most of the first movie. And, like, yeah, like, they're really just not the Fellowship for the majority of the IP.
No.
And so I think that that's something that, honestly, I think works to their benefit from, like, a storytelling perspective. Like, we get a little bit of it towards the end, but, like, the hobbits are not exactly going to hold their own in a battle. And, like, I just feel like it sets it up so well to have your, like, very distinct, very different skill sets of characters. And then you have Boromir, who's the repeat, but conveniently he goes bad, and then you can just kill him off.
I'm just going to say, I feel like the hobbits would be a completely different character trope if they could hold their own in a battle. Like, I feel like they would be another version. I'm kind of picturing in my head another version of dwarves, just smaller.
Yep.
The kind that go for the kneecaps.
Yes.
I just gotta say that.
Yeah, bite him in the shin. Like,
bite him in the shin.
Yeah. I do think that there would be a very funny, like, it would be a very funny, very different movie if the hobbits were the ones in all the fights.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just imagine them with, like, golf clubs for some reason. Oh no, it's because
we were having a conversation about other stuff earlier.
Right, but, like, in Lord of the Rings, isn't it canonical that hobbits invented golf?
I think so.
Am I making that up?
I feel like I've read that somewhere.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah.
But even if it's not, I would connect hobbits. Like, I would believe that as a headcanon.
Yeah, they do seem like the people that would be very meticulous about mowing grass so that they could play a game on it. Which, like, you know, of all the reasons to do lawn work, that's probably the best.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to ask you to make the hard choice. Who is your favorite member of the Fellowship and why?
Aragorn, because he's cool.
It's a good reason.
That's all I need.
Yeah.
Period. End of sentence.
You're not wrong. Like, that is a
That is a reason.
and that is a very factual statement. He is indeed very cool.
It's so hard. I don't know. I feel like mine has changed throughout the years as well. But I think Pippin, I love the journey he goes on. The It's unfortunate the way he has to grow up,
Mm-hmm.
but he still grows up so kind despite all of the hardships. And I don't know. I just love him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think he has like probably the best character arc.
This may be a question for Chris, but in terms of Hobbit lifespans, do we know if Merry and Pippin are technically considered still like adolescents
I
during
think
that point?
so. They're they're young.
Okay. That might be a Lord of the Rings Tolkien expert question.
I'm on Wiki.
33 is their coming of age. And I think they were younger than that. Oh, yeah, Pippin was 28, Mary was 36.
Okay, so they were still around that like young
Mm-hmm.
adult point
Yeah.
in their lifespans.
Um, for me, I mean, kind of like Shanine, what you were saying, like it changes so much. Like, like you can't deny that like Sam is the MVP of the party, but
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, like I've always liked Gimli. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like Gimli plays the like I'm an expert in my field and also I can be comic relief while like
Yeah.
being awesome, which I
Yeah.
feel like is a very like hard line for a lot of characters to walk.
Yeah. He's the kind of comic relief that doesn't detract from his character.
Right. Um, even like the petty stuff, like him and Legolas like competing over like orc kills and stuff like that. Like this still only counts as one. Like that's such like an awesome comedic moment that like he's not wrong. It is only one, but like it also just is so in character and feels so like he's competitive and doesn't want Legolas to get an advantage. So I just love Gimli so much because of that. Our like middle image was almost the and my axe because of that. But I couldn't find a still of it. I could only find the GIF, and I was
Yeah.
like, that might be too distracting.
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, I love Gimli so much.
I also want to give a special shout out to Boromir because I feel like he gets all of the hate. And I definitely hated him the first several times watching and reading The Lord of the Rings as well. But watching it more recently, he has won me over. And I think, I don't know, he gets such a bad rap, but he's just trying to take care of his city and his family.
Mhm.
And he is not the first person to be seduced by the power of the
Yeah.
ring. And he ends up being good and heroic in the end.
Yeah.
And doesn't he like isn't he technically put in a bit of a tough position with his dad
Yeah,
too?
Denethor's a jerk.
Yeah. Like
Denethor's the real
technically he
villain.
is like the favored son, but when you're put in that position as well, it's like there's more pressure there on you.
Oh yeah.
So it's like he's got a lot of stuff happening all at once.
And I feel like that's part of the. I feel like that's part of the challenge of writing Boromir is the like, oh, he's so like hateable, and I like that he gets his moment of redemption at the end too. And I feel like it's just the like for us as the audience, I would say we just watched, but like 2.5 hours earlier, we watched Isildur fail to throw the ring in into Mount Doom, and so in our heads we're in the whoa, a human just messed this up last time and caused all of these problems, and now you're gonna try to do this. But like, of course, that's like thousands of years before Boromir, but like. I feel like in my head, that's always like the baggage I've attached to him, which, like isn't really fair because, thousands of years in the past, but, here we are. We kind of already touched on this, but what do you think makes the Fellowship feel like a great group of characters? Like, why
like a general fellowship or this one specifically?
This one specifically. What do you think it is that makes, like, why is it that these specific characters work so well?
I think this one, like, they're a unique character that's still like, I mean, we've got the friendship relationship between the hobbits already there, whereas in comparison to a lot of like assembly movies these days, no one knows each other from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with the hobbits, like, they all know each other already, basically. So like there's already a relationship there. And then we get to meet the other characters before they become a group, essentially. So I think, yeah, all of that plus their characters mend well together, despite being individuals,
Mm-hmm.
or on top of being individuals.
Yeah, I have similar thoughts. Like, they all really have their unique motivation for being there, which makes them really come alive as individual characters and makes them being forced into a group a little more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I really do feel like that diversity is like the biggest strength for why the Fellowship works. Like shared, and this is kind of exactly what you were just saying, Shanine, like shared primary motive, but they're like individual motives for what they want to get done along the way, are so unique or so diverse, or get like completely detoured in some senses. They just kind of end up in a place where they're trying to do their best along the way. And I feel like that's such like a big part of why it works. And everyone has their niche. And so like no one feels like overly redundant. Again, part of that I think is the strength that the Fellowship actually breaking up, in terms of traveling together, breaking up. But, and I really think that kind of gives the characters their time to shine, as they like, again, I mean, it also, always helps to have a goal that is literally to defeat all evil so that the world doesn't end. So like that is a pretty good motivator for keeping the team together. So, or keeping on mission, but yeah. When it comes to fantastical or like the more outrageous movies, what does it take to make a fellowship or a group of like main characters feel real in those situations? Like, is there something that like helps you connect with specific groups, some specific groups more than others?
Weaknesses. And not just physical, but like things they suck at.
Yep.
Or whatever. Where's my train of thought going with this? Oh, I'm thinking kind of like the Avengers in comparison to the Eternals. Like, we know with the Avengers that Captain America and Iron Man don't get along for a lot of reasons that we see in several occasions. Whereas we don't, like, with the Eternals, they're all just high and mighty and Like, sure, there's some sibling rivalry or whatever, but like that's it. So like when characters express or show that they aren't just all powerful, then it's like, okay, I can get on board with believing you're more than just a figure on a screen or whatever.
I think the relationships are most realistic when the individual characters are true to themselves and they're like reacting and responding in the ways that their characters would actually react and respond in, and like having their own thoughts, like not just having everyone agree for convenience's sake or fight for drama's sake, but actually just agreeing and disagreeing when it is realistic to do so.
Yeah. I think for me, no like major spoilers, but like this is one of the things I think Rings of Power is doing well. I think it's with Durin the Fourth, who's like the dwarven prince, of like all of his like frustrations and even his like positive motivations all feel very grounded. And so, like, even when he's making decisions that are clearly going to have specific consequences based on the things that we know about from the Lord of the Rings movies, um, I think even in those moments where like it's very reasonable to see why he's doing that, and I think that that's like a big part of like what makes characters and IPs in general, but especially in the fantastical ones, feel real for me. Is like having that like it's about a human story, even though it's elves and dwarves and all of that stuff. It's about like the human condition. Like that's something that helps me get through. Um, do you find that it's easier or harder um, to believe in these like relationships, these fellowships, when it comes to fantasy IPs or more grounded IPs? Or
I
is
mean,
it?
with fantasy, it kind of goes back to that previous question of like how well thought out the characters are and the like their interactions are. Um, because more grounded IPs or things that are more based in reality are gonna have more elements that are like everyday elements. So kind of like if something doesn't quite work between two characters, there's going to be more sort of everyday elements that are going to like not necessarily cover that up, but like it's real enough that the audience is going to overlook some fallacies, if you will. But with so I guess it's easier in many ways with more grounded IPs. But with fantasy, if it's like done right, then it can be just as easy.
Yeah, I think it depends. I find that in the fantasy series and things like that, the characters are often the things that we can relate to the most easily because everything else is so outrageous and unfamiliar on purpose that those characters have to be grounded in reality for us to be able to connect with the story. I think with grounded IPs, it kind of depends on its genre. Like I'm thinking sitcoms, I think the relationships are often not realistic because that's where they go over the top. It's like the world and stuff is familiar and normal, but they have to do everything extra with the relationships and the drama.
I definitely agree. I feel that, like, for me, like, fantasy relationships are so much easier to get in the door, but are, like, harder to do well. Like, I feel like it's a lot easier to do a medium fantasy group well. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. Versus, like, a medium, like, grounded. I like that you brought up sitcoms, Shanine. But, like, I feel like it's, like, it's so much easier to be critical there. And so it's much easier to have them fall on the bad or good end of the spectrum rather than in a fantastical world. It's like, well, I don't know what these people have gone through. I don't know what it's like to grow up in this place or whatever. And so I feel like it's a lot easier to just kind of have a medium fellowship. And that can, of course, lead to very high highs, but I do feel like that kind of helps with what's going on. With that, can be fictional, can be real. But what are some of your favorite fellowships in other IPs, and why do you think they work? Like, what is it about that fellowship that, like, clicks for you? I'll go first for this one. Actually, I have several, because here I am. But I can go first and give you all time to think. So the first one that came to mind when I was thinking of this question was Persona 5, the Phantom Thieves. I really like those characters, and I feel like they don't necessarily do as well with, like, the widespread motive of things just kind of escalate in that game very quickly. And while it makes sense for some characters to want to stick it out, like, it does kind of seem weird that they're all there other than, for the convenience of the plot. But I really like that group. And then I cannot, like, stop saying enough positive things about Mass Effect 2's crew. I've always felt like they've done such an awesome job. One second.
Scoff you.
Thank you. I was like, I felt it come. For listeners that are
just listening.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Emma. I felt that coming, and I was like, I need to stop. I need to mute. Like, we need to. But yeah, so, like, I love the team from Mass Effect 2, and I feel like there's a lot of overlap in that party in terms of, like, mechanics, or in terms of, like, or slight riffs on what the team does, but the actual, like, personalities from everyone feel so distinct. And kind of going into what we were talking about with Lord of the Rings, like, everyone's motives feel like pretty solid, like, for why they would want to be the one to risk it all to save the universe here. It's not just the, like, oh, well, we got to beat the bad guy, so insert new space alien race here and put one in the party. I do like that diversity, and I like that how that, like, brings them in. And then Shanine got me sidetracked with sitcoms, and it's got to be the Pawnee Parks and Rec department. Like, I love those characters so much, and again, like, hitting the same notes that we've had throughout this. Like, every character is so different, and I love that about them. They all get such awesome development and such awesome growth throughout that series. I love that no one ends Parks and Rec feeling like the same character, but at the same time, none of them end Parks and Rec feeling like different characters. Like, everything.
There's a phrase for that, Cameron.
What's that?
Character development.
Whoa.
Fancy that.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's just that cast is so good, and they play those parts so well. Shout out to all the writers and the people that worked on that show. But that's definitely my, like, sitcom crew of, like, I've definitely, like, after that show looked at, like, hey, could I work for a Parks and Rec department? They're inspiration to us all. But yeah, so those are my picks for favorite fellowships.
I am so surprised you did not say Team Aang.
Oh,
I know.
I was waiting for it.
one.
I gotta leave some for y'all.
Feel like a collective team Aang.
Yes.
Is that your only answer, Shanine?
No, I don't know.
Go. Shanine, go.
I mean, they're just a group of kids being crazy kids.
Yeah. Mom, I'm gonna be late for dinner. I have to go save the world. Yeah. I think one of the biggest things there is like just like the scale of that. It's crazy that it's that these are like 12 to 14-year-olds, which of course, like, target audience for the show. That's funny how they do that. But like, it's so crazy that happens. And then that we actually get it acknowledged in the show, like the pressure of what is going on. And I love that about it. Like they don't shy away from like the like literal mountains of weight that is on their shoulders. And oh man, it all started because Sokka couldn't say nice things.
Wah wah.
Well, just think of where the world would be if
Sokka.
Sokka was a good person at the beginning.
Seriously.
Shanine,
So
what
one
else?
of the
Or go ahead, Emma.
yeah, go Shanine.
I mean, I also love the Pevensey children. I mean,
I know,
typical-
but what is that?
from The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. I don't know, typical sibling group where half the time you're taking care of each other and half the time you're betraying each other to the White Witch.
Yeah, for some Turkish delight.
Just
Yep.
typical sibling stuff. But no, beyond The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and like Prince Caspian and things like that as well, just the way that they interact and listen to each other, the ones that kind of have their closer bond and stick up for each other. I don't know. I love them. And I don't know. I'm trying to pick.
Let's see, where's your Doctor Who
guess.
with which companions?
Oh, that too. I mean, obviously,
And a lot of
Capaldi
the
and Clara.
times-
Yeah.
A lot of the times those are more duos than fellowships.
Good point.
The majority of the time.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'll also say the Crown Keepers from Critical Role, from the first EXU series. They got me into Critical Role and also made me feel so many things.
All of the emotions.
They're a chaotic group of chaos.
All of
That's
the
it.
chaos.
They're chaotic.
Yeah.
We love them for
Are
it.
they the Elmo on fire gif?
Accurate.
Checks out. For me, if you have anything else, Janine, I don't
Nope.
want to.
Go for it.
Okay. Honestly, the first thing that came to mind was the trio from the Percy Jackson books, Percy and Annabeth and Grover, because I loved those books as a kid. They're kind of like the Harry Potter trio, but make it Greek mythology instead of witchcraft and wizardry. But then along the same like vein of sitcoms, the Good Place characters, just because it's similar to Parks and Rec in the sense that they're all their own like distinct characters that 99% of the time would not interact under normal circumstances. And yet they were forced into a position where they would, and then they come out the other end being like the same but different characters because of character development. And there's just a lot of fun like back and forth between them, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun. So those are the two that I was thinking of and sort of attached to.
When I was thinking of this next part, my original question was the inverse. What are your least favorite fellowships? But that seemed a little rough. So what I decided to do instead was, do you have fellowship pet peeves? Or like, what are the story or like explanations for like a fellowship or anything like that, party dynamics, things like that? What are the pet peeves that turn you off of a fellowship of characters? And I'll go because I have mine ready to go while y'all think. Mine is when the scale of their motivation doesn't match up with where the characters have been. So I feel like this is the very stereotypical like D&D campaign of like, oh, here's our characters. They're in this situation. Oh, now we got to go save the world, I guess. Like, I was just here to deliver flowers to my grandma, but now I'm out on this huge quest. Like, I do feel like there has to be like the appropriate escalation of those things. And like, that's one, even with Persona 5, it's definitely one that I think overall works out very well. But for some of the individual characters, it's like, I'm not sure why you're here, like long term. But or it's like, I think it feels like your quest was complete, but you're just still here because we built mechanics around you. So you need to be in the party. And so, yeah, that's definitely my biggest one. I think, and then like kind of like nestled within that is when it doesn't make sense for the party to actually travel together. Like there are some times like that's kind of like your greatest weakness is your greatest strength pushed too far. Like sometimes the cast or like the team is just so diverse that it just like, it doesn't really feel like y'all are all on the same page. And I don't know why you are all together. Like shenanigans are occurring to keep this party moving. So,
yep. Y'all are really like, the only reason y'all are still together is because of one strand of duct tape.
Exactly.
I don't know if this would be considered more of a trope just in general, but like when you have a group and like the whole thing happens where person A goes to person B and says, hey, person C said this thing about you, and person B just blindly trusts person A and like causes full-blown drama with person C without like getting second or third opinions, or just going to person C and being like, hey, did you say this thing about me or whatever. And it's just like all so unnecessary just because person A wanted to like split person B and C up so that person A could be with person C. You know, like that kind of unnecessary like in-group like drama causes that are like, all of this would be resolved if you just sat down and like asked politely. So I guess I feel like that's just more of a storytelling trope than anything, but that's like the biggest, like if the writers have to resort to that to keep this group interesting, then that should tell them that their group dynamics are not strong enough, and it's just so worn out at this point that it's not very interesting.
Yeah. One of the big things that I heard from you there is the trope of this easily could have been solved by communicating like a normal human
Yeah.
being, but instead of doing
Yeah.
that, we're now fighting.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, and I know, like, thinking back, I was talking to people or to my friends this weekend about it. Like when we read Shang-Chi, and it's like Shang-Chi fights Spider-Man. Why? Because we can't stop the talk. Like, we must fight. Um,
Exactly. We can't just talk it over like normal people. We have to punch each other because someone told us to.
Yeah, I was thinking along similar lines as well. Not as specifically, but just any kind of unnecessary drama where it's focusing more on the relationships in the group and not any kind of goal at all. It's just the goal was there to get them together, and now it's just drama.
yeah. Okay. We asked it at the beginning, or said it was one of the biggest strengths of, or I guess it was one of the biggest strengths of the Fellowship. I guess y'all kind of nodded along. Maybe that's just y'all pitying me. But one of the things that the Lord of the Rings does so well with their group is that they split it up. IMO. Uh, it's not a cast of 10 characters the whole time. It's casts of like 3 to 4 in groups. And so, kind of with that, I wanted us to think smaller. And we're going to segue this into our Last of Us conversation a bit later on. But when it comes to both the Fellowship of the Ring Fellowship and other fellowships, who are your favorite duos?
I mean, I think in terms of Lord of the Rings, the obvious answer is Gimli and Legolas, because I mean that or the two hobbits, but that's one of just the best relationships, whatever, sort of both in the books and in the movies of just two friends, like bantering constantly, who on this like claim they don't get along, but they really do.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't want to show it. Which is just great. In terms of like not Lord of the Rings, oh geez, there's what I had it earlier, but I've since forgotten what it was. I was looking at my bookcase, which is where I got it from. So someone else go while I try to remember.
I mean, from Lord of the Rings, we got Pippin and Merry. I just love them. They're trying to have a good time. And also, there's scary things, but they're doing their best.
They're just trying to help.
I mean, yeah, kind of said this a bit earlier. 12 and Clara. Just love them. I just love them. The way they care about each other. I always think of the volcano and I just can't. It's too much. But even in betrayal, that doesn't ruin their friendship. It just gets me.
Heartbreak.
So for me, especially on a day like today, the obvious answer is Joel and Ellie. Like,
Yeah.
like I love their dynamic. I love the like forced family trope that they find themselves in, of like Joel not necessarily wanting to be a dad again, not wanting the pain that he has to like go through because he never had therapy because who would talk about their feelings with someone else?
Let alone in the middle of a zombie
Right.
apocalypse.
Yeah, why would people need to
Who
do
has
that?
the time for that?
And so I love their dynamic. I love their relationship, and I love that throughout the series we get to see that, like, see the struggles around them. About obviously, like, that feel like that makes them feel very real as a family combo. And yeah, I love that so much. And then Lord of the Rings wise, I like the Gandalf Frodo moments. Again, I just love the I don't know the way to say it, but like I love this like super wise wizard who's just here like, oh boy, you have no clue what you're about to go through. Like I'm going to ask you to do this and you have no clue the journey that you're about to go on. Kid who's never left the Shire. Like, just like that mentorship role that Gandalf is able to provide, and for most of the Fellowship, but like specifically that mentorship role that he's able to have with Frodo. And then, Sam and Frodo are obviously another big one for me. Mostly Sam in that, but Frodo gets to be there to make Sam look good and look like the best friend you could ever have. So, and then go ahead.
No, I have my other set pair, but finish your thoughts.
Then the last one I have is having Legend of Korra on the mind is Mako and Bolin. I love their brother relationship. And I love what they get up to throughout that series, and kind of the like general shenanigans that occur between them. And I love that throughout the, especially like towards book 4, we get to see them on very opposite ends of, like, I don't want to say of a conflict. That feels a little harsh, because they're not like at war necessarily with each other, but like we get to see them at other ends of like ideological differences, I guess is the best way to say it. And so we kind of get to see them have to reconcile that and come back together. So
I still need to watch Legend of Korra.
yes,
I've seen like the first like 3 episodes or something, but no further than that.
can confirm you need to watch.
Yes, indeed.
I have thoughts.
I know. Of course you have thoughts. But my non-Lord of the Rings related, which I can't believe I spaced out on, but Crowley and Aziraphale from Good Omens, which are just, they're so different that they're literally on opposite sides of the conflict, and yet they find common ground in which to be on the same side of the conflict for. That is neither side, but their own side. And so they're like, let's create our own side of this conflict. And so they do. And because literally you've got one as a demon and one as an angel in the midst of the end times. And they're like, we don't want the end times to happen. We're gonna make them not happen. And it's just such a fun relationship because they are both inherently what they are, and yet they're best friends, which is great.
I guess with that, any final thoughts on what makes a good fellowship before we hop into our conversation on the Last of Us trailer?
A real fellowship is the friends you made along the way.
Perfect. I honestly thought about
Best
making that our show
summary,
title.
Best summary there, Shanine.
Yes.
10 out of 10.
Somebody had to say it.
Yes. Okay. So our one piece of news for this week, is that today, as of recording, is The Last of Us Day. And as part of that, we got a new trailer for the HBO Max series, starring Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, playing I almost said the titular characters. Their names are not Last and Us. Playing the main characters of Joel and Ellie in The Last of Us. Did y'all have a chance to catch this trailer? And if so, what did you think?
I have hope. I mean, I'm still skeptical about everything because I am skeptical about every adaptation on the planet. But for this project, I am slightly less skeptical and a little more hopeful because it looks like they're staying pretty true to the game and the storyline, and like they're even like using some like framing matchups from the game itself, at least in the trailer, what we see of the trailer. And I'm pretty excited for that because I'm hoping, from what it looks like, that they're pulling something kind of like the Sandman, where they're not just pulling from the story of the game, but like obviously the video game has a lot of cinematography going on in it. Like, I'm hoping they're pulling from the source material that's already there, even if they do take some creative liberties, because it means that they're being super mindful about the fan base and what we've come to enjoy so much about the games.
Yeah. I'm very hopeful. There's certain scenes that I really hope they do like shot for shot the game.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely some stuff that that's really what I hope we get, and I'm very excited for us to see more background for a lot of these characters. Mm-hmm. Like Emma, I think it was you that brought this point up in the Discord as we were chatting about it, but like the story of The Last of Us isn't that long, like really, and so like we can definitely move through it pretty fast, and I'm really hopeful that we get some great like development. And they've already said, like I said earlier, that there will be some side stuff that's not in the games that they're going to be bringing in.
Yeah.
And so I'm very hopeful that this will give us something. I saw Travis post a comment in chat, and I hadn't even read it yet, and I'm like, oh, I'm so ready. And so Travis in chat says, if Resident Evil has shown me anything, expect nothing. And when you get it, it's easier to abandon it, and any hope it will be better.
Which is why I'm hopeful but remain skeptical.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in the camp of I'm ready to be hurt. And like, I'm either going to be hurt because it's so good that it's going to just be all the feels from the game all over again, or I'm going to be hurt because I'm going to just be destroyed by the weight of this not living up to what I want it to be.
I have been hurt enough times that I no longer wish to exist in that camp, but you are welcome to live there. You can take my spot.
Yes.
Looking at you, Percy Jackson, and Aragon, and all of the others.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just say, Shanine and I were in this together. The last like major hype that I had was Spider-Man No Way Home. And it delivered, so I can't be let down again. I say as I will regret this. We'll see. So, Shanine, I think you said, you shook your head earlier. You did not have a chance to watch?
No, I've not seen the trailer. I've also not played the game, but I do want to be able to watch this show because some of it was filmed in my city.
Oh,
Ooh.
That's awesome. So, without spoilers, how much do you feel you know about the story of The Last of Us? Like, are you familiar with it in passing? Or would you be like going in blind? Like,
pretty blind. Like, I know the names, Joel and Ellie.
Okay.
Beyond that, I'm pretty sure it's zombies. And I feel like somebody dies.
Second
That's
game.
There will be a lot of deaths.
There will be death.
Like,
but if you're reading the chat in Discord earlier today, that's second game.
yeah.
The events that were being discussed.
I haven't read it, so.
But lots of people die in the grand
Yes.
scheme of things. It's
Yeah.
a zombie apocalypse. People die.
Yeah. There's a very good chance you will cry in the first episode. I say that because I'm planning to cry in the first episode. So, but yeah,
enough.
I'm very excited. Like, I mean, I've obviously would be very excited for you to go play the games because it's like my favorite series. But I'm also very excited for you to go in blind. Like,
That's going to be interesting.
It's on my list of games to play, but I do not think I'll be getting to it before the show comes out. So maybe I will go in blind, see how it is. Better that way.
Yeah. And I feel like this came up with something else. Maybe it was actually when Emma played part 2. And I feel like that led to us being able to have some like really cool conversations of like the her coming into part 2. And I feel like we kind of are setting ourselves up for a repeat of that as a podcast.
For context, I played part 2 before I played part 1. So when I touched part 2, I never touched part 1. Except for a brief summary so that I could understand the events of part 2. That's a quick, brief summary.
Yeah, and I feel like that leads to like great conversations of like the someone coming in not knowing as much versus someone being more of a fan. We've kind of had the inverse with y'all, or with the three of us, but with y'all and Doctor Who versus me, of like me coming into it like semi-recent, more like in terms of watching more than like the first season of New Who, but like I kind of got to discover New Who with Deanna and then kind of share that experience like through podcast with y'all. And so I feel like we kind of got that, and I feel like that's such a good way of experiencing a fandom.
It is.
Okay, listeners, let us know who are your favorite fellowships, what are your fellowship pet peeves, and are you ready to cry from watching The Last of Us on HBO sometime in 2023? So are you ready for all of those things? And so let's get into some announcements as we wrap up our show for tonight. Who is planning to stream this week?
Yes, I'm planning to stream Saturday morning. Gonna be trying some Beacon Pines that finally came out. I've been waiting for it. It's cute animals, and it's a little spoopy.
And it is spoopy season.
It is.
According to your Twitter. So
yes, going strong.
Okay. I pulled up in it. I'm getting this on the main thing, but I found the box art for Beacon Pines, and it's kind of great. By kind of great, I mean it's awesome. So
good.
This looks really cute.
Yeah, I played the test preview thing on stream or on Steam like several months ago, and I've been waiting. So excited.
Yeah, this looks
it's finally
like
out. And it's a little storybook. It's so cute. You make the story different by choosing words.
So fun.
I kind of came.
It's all about words and cute animals. Got them.
Yes.
Yeah. Check and check. I will likely not be playing Thursday because we've got book club and I will be at school before that. But I may or may not stream on Friday for a little bit.
And then for me, I'm hoping to do something Saturday night or like late afternoon on Saturday. And so I'm not 100% sure on timelines yet, or even necessarily what I will be doing. It might be Toem. Um, like that's been on my
Do
list,
it.
and hearing Emma talk about it, like it might be that. Um, so, or maybe just be Fall Guys. If people want to come and play Fall Guys. So we'll see. But I am hoping to do something Saturday afternoon, early evening, and then we referenced it earlier. This Thursday is our book club on Beren and Luthien by Tolkien, and also edited by Tolkien. And we're going to talk about that myth and how it had adapted and changed. That'll be here on twitch.tv/OneGeek411 Thursday at 6:45 Mountain Time. So come back for that discussion as we continue the Lord of the Rings talks. So that has been episode 220 of First Geek 411. As always, as I said at the top, you can find us as One Geek 411 on our social media. You can join our Discord server. Shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Check out that Redbubble store and watch live on Twitch. Drop a follow to see all the gameplay streams as they go live. And you can head over to our YouTube to check out the videos of all of our past book clubs, and all of our episodes back to 135. And so we also got spoiler casts, we got tier lists, we got all kinds of stuff over there. And then if you want to find us, you can also do that through our personal social media. Mine is Humar Whittle.
Mine is I am not prepared with an I.
I'm the Hoot and Howl on Twitter and Hoot and Howl Tales, TALES, on Instagram.
Oh, and I meant to say this earlier. You can also find Shanine on City on a Hill Season 4. I believe episode 2 dropped this past week. And so I meant to give you that shout out earlier in the show and completely forgot. So
We love it.
So I got it in here. And so with that, it has been a great week.
Read a book.